It was useful, he told her, to gauge their routines, to understand how cautious they were, how observant, and how aware they were of their potential threats. Shanggu's instinct was for immediate action, but she trusted Yuan. He had worked with her for 5 years, and he was the nearest thing she had to a father. He knew what he was doing. Qiang led his wife to the Intercontinental Hotel and its Phoenix Pavilion restaurant. Report, Shanggu. They're going into the restaurant to eat. Copy that. That's enough for today. We'll pick them up again tomorrow. She frowned. Why not proceed now? No, Shanggu. Disengage. That's an order. Shanggu stared at the window as the maitre d' led the general and his wife through the busy restaurant to a table that was visible from where she was standing. He handed them leather-bound menus and retreated with a deferential bow. They had been taken to a quieter area of the restaurant, with booths rather than open tables. Shanggu froze, staring through the window as the voices in her head started to get louder. Shanggu, Yuan said in her ear, you are not to engage. Repeat, do not engage the target. Tell me you understand. A waiter came across to the general's table, bowing with the same courteous submission as the maitre d'. The general said something, and the waiter laughed politely. Shanggu, report. She reached up to her ear, plucked out the receiver, and dropped it into her pocket. Yuan would just distract her if she had to keep listening to him. She would do what she was here to do. She would do it well, and he would be pleased. She went to the doors of the restaurant and pushed them open. The maitre d' was at his lectern, running his finger down the list of people who had booked tables to dine that afternoon. The man looked up as Shanggu approached, his servile smile disappearing as she walked around him and through into the restaurant. Excuse me, miss? The room was beautifully appointed. A vast chandelier had been fitted to the ceiling over one of the largest tables. Another huge fixture hung over the bar, endless bulbs illuminating the bottles with a soft glow. The floor was marble, and the pillars and columns that supported the ceiling had been clad in marble too. Diners sat in horseshoe-shaped booths that were lined in purple velvet and at circular tables that glittered with silver cutlery and crystal tableware, with huge sprays of carnations in ornate china vases. Excuse me, the maitre d' protested again. Miss, please, you can't just go. The man reached out for Shanggu and grabbed her by the elbow. She stopped and turned. You can't just walk into the restaurant. Do you have a reservation? Shanggu glanced to her right. She was next to a table at which 4 diners were enjoying their meals. She reached out with her right hand, collected a chopstick from the nearest setting and, with a near pivot, plunged it into the eye of the maitre d'. He shrieked, letting go of Shanggu's elbow as both hands went up to his face. The diners at the table froze in horror. The man nearest to Shanggu pushed back his chair in an effort to put distance between him and her, but tripped over the leg and fell backwards into one of the other diners at an adjacent table. Shanggu ignored them all. She turned and continued into the restaurant, stepping between tables of increasingly agitated diners and following the path that the general and his wife had taken to reach their private booth. It was quieter here, but the men and women who had been enjoying their meals were now beginning to crane their necks toward the clamour from the other tables. Shanggu approached the general and his wife, reached into her jacket and pulled out the pistol that she wore in a shoulder holster. Qiang tried to stand, but he was sitting in the booth and there was no space between his seat and the edge of the table. The general raised his hands in front of him. Please! Shanggu aimed and fired into the middle of his chest. The bullet passed through his body and into the back of the velvet-covered bench. Shanggu had been pumped full of chemicals to keep a